And you think again, the one authority that would be speaking about this would be speaking about the atrocities. Pope Pius XII, when he was alive, would be saying, that he would stand with the persecuted of any faith, right? Assuming that would mean the faithless as well, which you could argue is the case with many people in the UK, in regards to the Catholic faith anyway. Obviously, you have the split that occurred back in the 1600s. However, one thing that seems to be showing many troubling signs of decline and weakness in many ways, and again, incoherence, is the Catholic Church, very sadly. One of the biggest threats that was highlighted, especially throughout the 20th century, by the Catholic Church was the threat of communism. And many Catholic apologists, for example, I know Trent Horn, I haven't read it, but has written a book, for example, about can you be a socialist and a Catholic? And his ultimate answer, many of the videos where he's talked about the book, has been no. So why then, in many instances, or in the instance now which I was made aware of today, this was posted earlier on today, Pope Leo suppressed 2 Chinese dioceses of Zhuangzi and Shanhua, I'm not sure how to say it, Sanhua, erected by Pope Pius XII. Replacing them, he recognizes the Chinese Communist Party's Diocese of Shangjiakou. Father Wang Zhehui, again I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong, will be the new bishop, having been the CCP's ambitious lead in Zhangjiakou for years. So now the Pope Leo, which is truly troubling after many people, again, the history of the Catholic Church has been staunchly against communism, has now made an underground deal with the Chinese Communist Party, basically giving the Chinese communists ownership of the Catholic Church in China. You think they're not going to politicize that? You think because they see that in many instances in China at the moment, it does seem that faith is on the rise because people are despairing. People are despairing because of the government which they've allowed to erect itself, the system which they've, again, allowed to be brought in with the surveillance and the social credit system and everything like that, the modern day surveillance Orwellian state. Many of them are despairing for the fact that they get made homeless at the flick of a switch, that they get no ownership over where they go. They have no ownership of anything. China is the epitome of you will own nothing and be happy because you won't have a choice to be happy, because if you express sadness and if you express any discontent with the regime, then we will just make it so much worse. You understand, when people get so fucking hopeless quite literally, but hopeless like that, they turn to faith because they have nothing left. And now the government in China has said that they're going to try and come in and take over the Catholic Church, right? And the Pope has been like, yep, go ahead. What the fuck is going on? What the fuck is going on? And everybody that's been saying about the Catholic Church at the moment, that it is not the Church of old, it is not the Church of St. Peter, that ever since, really, you could argue, at least since Vatican II, the popes around then, and a set of vacantists that don't recognize the legitimacy of modern popes, their case is getting stronger and stronger. Where's the Pope that said anything about Irina Zarutska? At time of recording, and to the best of my knowledge at time of recording, if there's been a development since then when it's in the editing process, I'll try and put a note somewhere down here. Pope has said nothing about Irina specifically. The Catholic Church was all over BLM in the aftermath of the George Floyd drug overdose, mind you. According to Catholic Arena on X, when George Floyd died, the Church's reaction was swift and profound. The Pope condemned racism and his death, issuing a message to the USA. Again, condemning his death as a drug overdose. Cardinal Farrell led a vigil in the Vatican saying his death was so unreal it seemed like a movie. The Bishop of El Paso and his priests took the knee for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, and the Pope personally called him to thank him for doing so. And a Catholic university, this is particularly bad, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to put this up on screen for you in a moment. The Catholic University of America in Washington installed an artwork depicting Floyd as Jesus and Mary as his mother, and it does seem that they have somewhat Africanized Mary as a result to virtue signal. When you see things like this, ladies and gentlemen, have a look at this image, which I'll bring up on screen for you now. Bear in mind, at this moment in time, as I said, the Pope has said nothing about Irina Zarutska or anything like that. That image up in the top left there, surely that is sacrilegious. Surely that is sacrilegious. As far as I know, no pope condemned them for that. But you can see there, ladies and gentlemen, George Floyd is being depicted as Christ. You know the meme, right? You know the meme, which I'll see if I can find now as well. Saint Floyd saved me from my white liberal guilt. That is the equivalent of what's going on, and it's being done at a supposedly Catholic institution. Let me see if I can find it. I have it saved, but I don't have it bookmarked anywhere. I don't think. I'm just trying to find the meme. It's again another meme of George Floyd being depicted as a saintly figure. Let me see if I can find it. Again, they made statues to this guy. You had people crying at his coffin. Right? I can't find the exact meme at the moment. Let me see if I can see. Let me see if I can find. Okay, it's not the same meme that I was referring to because it's lacking the text. But this is the image in question, which you often see me post on social media, ladies and gentlemen. And it has the caption on the other side of it, on the underneath of it, "Saint George, save us from our white liberal guilt." This is literally what they've done. They literally replaced Christ with George Floyd. This university did, and as far as I know, again, the Pope said absolutely nothing. At least it doesn't say that there's been, again, any comment. There's been no comment, again, about Irina Zarutska. Why is the church not commented? Why is it seem that, again, praises open borders, echoing the Francis line, saying that it's a sin to not accept migrants and stuff like that. And it does seem, ladies and gentlemen, one thing, however, again, when you see this as well, the image coming out of the Catholic Church, this was one of the things from the pro-LGBT parade that went through the church the other day, where you have two seemingly homosexual males in this instance, one of them walking through the church. Again, they seem to have the Pope's blessing, right? They seem to be blessing this. And again, they refuse to do anything about cardinals that hold gross sex orgies in houses and stuff like that. You literally have a guy walking through this, holding another guy's hand with a bag that says "fuck the rules" on it. And this is what seemingly the Vatican is giving their blessing. The people that are throwing your rules in your face and spitting in your face as they do so, again, not necessarily saying I have anything against these people in particular, and to a certain extent I would say that, you go to hell in a handbasket if you bloody want to, but for the church to be welcoming this, you scandalise the faithful, surely. Not speaking as any kind of authority, but Nick Donnelly in this instance has quoted, actually, the Catechism of the Catholic Church, which really highlights what is going on and where the Catholic Church in this instance does seem to be leading people astray. Right? It does seem that for what Pope Leo XIII said, where he come up with the St. Michael prayer, because the devil was basically going to overtake the church or overtake this world over the next 100 years or whatever, or however, again, I forget how long a time frame it was, but the reason he came up with the St. Michael prayer certainly seems that it's true. So maybe it actually is, in fact, the Church of St. Peter. Who knows? Basing itself on sacred scripture, this is Catechism of the Catholic Church 2357, which presents homosexual acts as an act of grave depravity. Tradition has always declared that homosexual acts are intrinsically disordered. They are contrary to the natural law. They close the sexual act to the gift of life. They do not proceed from a genuine, effective and sexual complementarity. Under no circumstances can they be approved. So they basically condemned now thousands to remain in a state of mortal sin and corresponding danger of eternal damnation from the Church's perspective. Now, if you think that that's not true, if you think that that is for whatever reason bigoted, etc., you can think that, okay, by all means, and you can go to hell in a handbasket if, Christianity happens to be true. The point is, the church is meant to stand for something, and in this instance, it does seem that the church is not standing for what they're supposed to. This, from the church's perspective, is going to be the opposite of love. It is actually one of the most damning things that they can do, because at least the church is meant to be saying, look, you're dealing with this, you have these, impulses, but look, live this way, and it's, we want you to have the fullness of salvation along with every other person that's in heaven right now, along with all the saints and etc. and reformed sinners, all of these things, right? We don't want you to suffer eternal damnation. To do that from the church's perspective, you have to again express that these things are wrong, and that's not seemingly what they're doing. It's a bit like, again, anybody that has any kind of problem, whether it's a drug problem, alcohol, anything, you have to be upfront and honest with them and be like, look, I love you, I want you to get better. From the church's perspective, that means not glorifying these things, not giving it the A-OK, because if what they say is true in their own sacred scriptures and in their own catechism, if they give this their blessing and say that it's okay, they are damning people to damnation for all eternity if what they say is true. And that is not what the church is meant to stand for. That is the opposite of the religion that they claim to be for. So again, makes you wonder. If you enjoyed that clip, then make sure to go on over to the Voice of the Valleys X page at VOT_Valleys on X. We're also on Instagram at Voice of the Valleys. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, all of that good stuff. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon. Godspeed.